The clock is ticking. In less than 2 weeks, August 1st, every shipment crossing the 49th parallel could be hit with a crushing 35% tariff. President Trump has signed the order, the ink is dry, and Canada's export machine is staring down its toughest test in a generation. Prime Minister Mark Carney is caught between a neighbour that buys a third of everything Canada sells and a White House that treats tariffs like a sledgehammer. So far, Ottawa has kept its voice down, pausing the digital services tax, floating polite gestures on missile defence, avoiding anything that looks like a public brawl. But quiet diplomacy only works until the shouting starts. Behind Parliament's closed doors, a single word is suddenly echoing. Potash. Think of it as crop superfood. More than half the planet's harvests depend on fertilizer, and potash supplies the potassium that makes those fertilizers work. Canada owns the jackpot world-leading reserves buried under Saskatchewan's prairie. The United States, by contrast, produced barely 400,000 tonnes last year, but burned through more than 5 million. With Russia and Belarus, America's only other major sources, tangled in sanctions and turmoil, Washington has nowhere else to turn. Shut Canada's spigot and North America's food bill explodes. That reality has Canadian MPs urging Carney to put potash on the table, not as cargo, but as leverage. Some want to freeze the full $9 billion worth of annual exports. Others propose a strategic stockpile financed through public bonds. Their message is blunt. If tariffs are pain, let the pain be mutual. Especially for US farmers, one of Trump's most loyal voting blocs. Of course, weaponizing potash is a razor-edged move. This isn't aluminum or SUVs, it's dinner plates. A supply shock would ripple from Midwest cornfields to grocery aisles everywhere. Yet Canada may not need to pull the trigger, just showing the holster could be enough. Dependency, not decibels, is the real power. Trump thrives on spectacle, potash fights and silence. Food isn't the only pressure point. Energy is about to flip the script. For the first time, Canadian liquefied natural gas is steaming straight to Asia, skipping US pipelines entirely. At the same moment, Ottawa has greenlit a coast-to-coast oil pipeline linking Alberta's wells to the Pacific. The project's promise? Canada's crude could sail to Tokyo without ever touching an American refinery. It's a $40 billion pivot that slices the old umbilical cord. 97% of Canadian oil and gas still flows south today and plugs directly into markets where demand is booming. A tanker leaving British Columbia reaches Asian ports in half the time it takes from the Gulf Coast. If the build-out continues, Ottawa gains a brand new card: diversion. Keep squeezing us, and the barrels, not just the threats, sail west. That shift terrifies US. Refiners who lean on stable Canadian supply, especially in the Midwest and Northeast. Higher feedstock costs mean higher pump prices, and no president tweets his way out of expensive gasoline. Meanwhile, Washington's own Alaska LNG megaproject lags years behind. By the time American gas arrives, Canadian cargoes could already be unloading. And then there's steel, the backbone of bridges, cars, and condo skylines. When Trump doubled duties on Canadian steel to 50% in June, exports cratered overnight. Instead of firing back, Carney drew a different map. Starting this month, imports from countries without a free trade pact will be capped at half their 2024 volume. Anything above pays the same painful 50% duty. Partners with accords get a larger quota, but the penalty beyond that line is identical. One surgical exception keeps US steel flowing tariff-free under existing rules, a quiet invitation to keep talking. Ottawa is using the breathing room to rebuild from the inside. $1 billion federal dollars will modernize mills, shift production to higher value grades, and secure jobs that once depended on Detroit orders. $70 million goes straight into retraining and wage support for 10,000 workers. Another $150 million targets steel towns reeling from sudden layoffs. Most radically, every federal bridge, ship, or housing project will have to source Canadian steel. Instead of lobbing counter-tariffs, Canada is rewiring its own demand so it can't be held hostage again. Notice the pattern? Potash, pipelines, LNG, steel. 4 pressure points, 1 playbook. Turn vulnerability into leverage without shouting trade war. Carney's government is signalling it's willing to negotiate, but not on its knees. The ideal endgame is a trimmed-down tariff, say, single digits carved around autos, energy and metals that both economies can't live without. But if Washington insists on the full 35%, Canada now has responses that hit where it hurts. The dinner table, the gas station, the construction site. So as August 1st approaches, global pulse viewers, ask yourself, who really blinks when food prices spike, when Midwest refineries scramble, when Asia snaps up Canadian cargo once destined for Texas? Trump's deadline was meant to corner Canada. Instead, it may be nudging Ottawa toward the kind of economic independence the country has talked about for decades, but never dared to execute. This story isn't ending on August 1st. It's only the next plot twist in a longer saga one, where food, fuel and steel have become chess pieces on a board that stretches from Saskatoon to Seoul. Stay with us, because the moment the clock hits 0, we'll be here to break down every new move, every unexpected consequence, and every ripple in your wallet. Don't just watch history happen, understand it. Hit subscribe and we'll navigate the fallout together.